We're going to talk about sessions and cookies. Right? So what are sessions and what are cookies? So I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of do a cursory read over this, and then I'll explain to you in English what this means, right? In plain English. So it'd be useful if you're like looking at the screen. Just saying. That's all. All right, cool. So let's just go over this super fast. It's a lot of computer sciencey terms in here, but the whole idea behind this session is that we need the ability to persist state between each request. Do you remember me explaining to you the other day that HTTP requests are stateless, right? I put this like in quotes. Do you remember that? So what does that mean when they're stateless? Yes, they don't have state. Very good. The idea here is that one request does not know about the data from the other requests. So I went over painfully the details and the differences between a render and a redirect. Do you remember? And why we needed the flash hash. So what flash hash does is it allows us to persist data. How many extra requests? One, right? And that's great for like error messages, right? It's like, hey, you logged in, actually you didn't, just kidding, you put your username or password in wrong. You don't want that to be there forever, meaning if the next time you go to the login page, you don't want that to come up, right? You only want that really kind of for like one extra request. But what if you were trying to log into a website? Do you want to log in and only be logged in for one extra request? No, that would be crazy. What a terrible user experience. 1 star, right? The idea here is that I want to be able to hold some data across requests for more than one request, an indeterminate amount of requests. So I'm going to introduce you to something called the sessions hash. And so it works just like the flash hash in the way that you write the code. And all you're doing is you're just creating a new key value pair that persists that data. Cool? Are there any questions on like a session? This is all the details on like how it's encoded and all that stuff. Cool. Let's talk about cookies. Oh no, I deleted it. Oh. All right, I'll just tell you about cookies. Cool. So when you make a request, there are a lot of things that happen when you actually make this request. A lot of data gets sent over and a lot of data gets sent back. Every single request, whether you go to google.com, blockbuster.com, circuitcity.com. Are you guys familiar with these places? Very popular businesses back when I was alive. And the idea here is that when you make the request, the server sends you back a lot of data that you don't always see as the user on the browser. One of those pieces of data, right, is a cookie. And all it is it's just a bunch of key value pairs. So let's take a look. All right? I can easily open any website, go into my dev tools, and take a look at my application. Here you can see a couple things, something called service workers, something about clearing your storage, local storage, session storage, which you'll learn about in Mod 4. And then something here called cookies. Every single web request you make, you will pass in these cookies, God bless you, back and forth. Cool? So let's take a look. Cookies, very descriptive. If you open it, you see localhost 3000, and then you see all of these things, right? Some of them look familiar, right? What's that? Bloop, bloop, bloop. Maybe bloop, right? Some apps I might have built in this like 1 week of tenure with you guys. Does that sound familiar at all? Cookies are, thank you, cookies are domain specific. So what that means is localhost 3000 is a domain. So is google.com, right? Google is its own domain. Amazon is its own domain. Netflix is its own domain. If I were to go into the application and check out cookies, Knowing what you know, should they be the same? No, right? And I love that you guys like nod or shake your head, and that's extremely useful. Only like I have the backlight against you, so I can't actually see. So if you could just say it, that would be super money. But look at all this. They're just a bunch of key values, right? So you have a key here pointing to a specific value. This is just in the Ruby world, you can think of this as just one large hash. There's a key of consent, value. Yes, very good. Nice. I have consent for this website. Cool. It's 2019. That's very important. Thank you. Thank you. All right. You have all these other things. Sometimes the keys don't make sense, but the values, let's take a look at these values. Do these values make sense to you? No, they don't, because they're typically encrypted. The idea here is that as you're sending data back and forth in this cookie, do you want to expose the data to the user? No, so you want to be able to basically transform like readable data into this unreadable data. We're going to learn more about that as we talk about bcrypt and hashing. But basically, you want to be able to store data, but not have it be human readable. Right? That makes sense. So for example, let's go back to Nacho Town. Right? Every time I built one of these apps, a lot of data is getting sent back and forth. And I don't want that to be human readable, so it just gets encrypted. Cool? Rails will do this for you. And what it will do is it will take a session. There's a lot of data in the session. All your params are in the session. Any key value pairs that you make, the action, the controller, a lot of data gets sent in there. And then it gets encrypted and gets put inside a cookie. And the cookie gets passed back and forth every single request. Does that make sense? So like whenever I make a request, if I have a cookie, I'm going to send it to the server. The server will receive it, possibly utilize that data, and then send the cookie back. And so in this request response cycle, the cookie is getting sent back and forth every single request. And if the session is inside that cookie, do you have access in every single request to the session? Yeah. All right, just simple logic. Cool. Are there any questions so far in what the difference between the session and the cookie? To sum it up in one sentence, right? Rails builds the session and puts it inside the cookie. Are there any questions? Wow, such a great class. This will come up again, I promise you, on Wednesday, and also in Mod 4. Hey, who here remembers like Mod 1? Remember Mod 1? Yeah, 4 people. Yep, that sounds about right. That's usually the case. All right, so let's get right to it. The idea, yeah?
Why is it called a cookie?
That's a very good Googleable question. I don't actually know. I used to know the story, but that's just like a fun fact. I don't remember it, I'm sorry. It's probably a cool story. Sorry. I wish I knew. I feel dumb. You guys want to look it up?